And I met these two Italian girls on the street in Naples, and they were very nicely dressed, you know, and they wanted to talk to me about America. And I thought, what am I getting into here now, you know? And should I ask them where they lived and all that? And so they were willing to tell me where they lived. They said they had an apartment a few stories up in close by building. And so I said, yeah. First of all, they asked me if I'd come up to dinner with them at their apartment. And I thought, oh no, now here we go. So I went up to their apartment, and it was a nice apartment. Their mother spoke no English, but a man came to the door and walked in. I learned it was their father. They got up and introduced me. It was their dad. And I learned that he was a professor at the university there at Naples. And they had the nicest dinner I ever had since I left home. Italian dinner, you know. And so the girls walked with me again after dinner and everything, and we said our goodbyes to Mom and Dad. We walked back down to the street, and we talked, and I told them I was from Washington, and they said, oh, Washington, D.C.? I said, no, Washington State. I said, that's up near Alaska. Oh, yes, Washington State, the girl that could speak a little English, you know. And they didn't know anything about America, you know. And my travels through Naples, I thought were, I wish I could think of more things to tell you. There was a nice family with 7 children. They lived on the water that looked right at the island of Capri. And I got a letter from them when I got home, and I sent them a care package. And nice people. The man's name was Leo Caliendo, and he had, I think, 2 daughters, and there was 2 boys there too, I think, about a family of 7. And well, my visit with them wasn't too long. We shared some things, like after I went back to camp, I had a few things I could share with them, you know, like cigarettes and chocolate that I had in my barracks bag. Of course, the kids went crazy for the chocolate, and all over Italy, in fact, all over through the war, France and Germany, the children would come up to me and cry, "Bon Bon Joe, you got Bon Joe?" And of course I couldn't turn it down, so every time I got any chocolate from home, I saved it for them.
Tom, as far as where did you start?
I landed at Anzio Beach on January 22nd, the day of the landing. We laid offshore for about maybe half an hour because there was another LST at the dock. And we passed each other coming in and going out, and I saw the captains waving at each other, you know. And they were saying, "Good luck, you're clear to go in," you know, and things like that. And so as I got off the beach, the first duty that I was assigned to was a mine detector they put around my neck, and I was to walk the beach looking for mines, you know. And I had some experience with mine detectors in training, so I knew something about them. But I had a good sergeant that was a demolition expert, and he had a corporal with him, and they walked about 100 feet behind me. And if I found a mine or anything, they were to detonate it. And well, I did find a mine. Now the thing we had to worry about was, is there another one underneath it, you know? Because that's the way the Germans work sometimes. They had another one underneath it, so we just, in the process of deactivating the first mine, we might set off the second one, you know. But you couldn't set off a mine unless you ran over it with a 6x6 truck or a tank, you know. They were tank mines, you know. And there were, well, maybe a Jeep would set one off, but anyway, and I think the sergeant told me, if you were running, Tom, you could probably set one off. But if you ever heard that cap snap, you better hit the ground, and even then I don't think you'll survive. Because the explosion is so great, and just nothing but black clouds up in the air, because we detonated one later. And while I was walking back up to the beach, a half track with one man in it was going along the seawall, and he ran over a mine, and the blast blew him up on the seawall. And oh God, he's done for, you know. Well, I got to him, one of the first ones to him, I got to him, and he was bleeding from his ears and his nose, and but he was still conscious, if you could believe that. And I said, my God, he went up in the air quite a ways, he must have done something internally wrong. But then as I was thinking all these things, the two medics came in and picked him up, and the 10th hospital wasn't too far away. And they took him over to the 10th hospital. I really don't know whether he survived or not. And that night, the first night in Anzio, there was 4 of us on guard, guarding our bivouac area, which was, I think somebody told me it was a big fascist home above the bank looking over the Mediterranean. Beautiful home, but there was no furniture or anything in it, you know. And one of the boys, I heard, well, when we walked up from the beach, the boy was with me on guard. We both sat in one of these old cement love seats, you know, in the yard, with vines over the top and everything, and we sat shoulder to shoulder like this. And an overhead burst went off right over our head. And he looked at me very quietly and he said, "I've been hit." And I said, "You've been hit?" You know? When I think of that boy, I get a little emotional. Anyway, I said, "Where were you hit?" He said, "On the arm." And it was on the opposite arm that I was sitting next to him. And so I looked at his shirt, it was all torn away, and the shrapnel had taken a piece of meat off his arm from his wrist up to his elbow. And it's just like it took a butcher knife and cut, not much blood, but just took a big piece of flesh off. And he looked at me very calmly and he said, "Well, I'm out of it first night, you know." And I said, "Yeah, I'm sure you are." First night he never experienced any war at all. He took him back to the hospital. Now maybe he recovered, I don't know. But, and then, of course, the other 3 men on guard were yelling, "Medic, medic, medic," you know. So I went to another boy and I tried to remember his name because I held the blood plasma bottle for the doctor that came up from the beach. And I won't forget that doctor either because he had bitten his fingernails to the flesh. He was so nervous, you know, about everything. But he wasn't nervous working on the boy. I thought the boy's name was Baker, but I didn't want to tell anybody that because they might have relatives at home and said, "Oh, God, that was our boy," you know, because he did die. And he was hit in the stomach with shrapnel. And I remember when the doctor put a tourniquet or something on his arm, and he said, "Geez, Doc, you're pinching me," you know. But he was losing more blood than we could put in him. And so I handed the blood plasma bottle to another boy next to me. And I said, "Hold this for the doctor for a while." And I ran over and took a door off an outhouse that was there. Pulled the bolts out and took the door off, and we used it for a stretcher. There was 4 of us got on a stretcher, and we put him on a stretcher because there was no road up to this home. It was just all cobblestone steps down to the beach, you know. And so, I don't want to lose my train of thought here now. Well, this boy was taken down to the 10th hospital, and I read a story about a nurse that told a story after the war was over, and she said that she held a boy that had been hit in the stomach, was bleeding to death, and he kept asking her, "Am I going to die? Am I going to die, nurse?" You know. And the nurse said all she could do was just stroke his head, you know, and tell him, "You're going to be fine," you know. And Of course, the boy died. But, and then we had another, 3 of those boys on guard were hit with me. You know, the powers that be, I guess. I guess it's either my mother's rosary or something saved me. But anyway,
You had a guardian angel, huh?
huh?
You had a guardian angel.
Yeah, at home. Oh, you said it. My mother was a guardian angel, all right. But anyway, another boy was hit in the back, and it took all his clothes off of his back and never touched his skin. And it tore half of his cartridge belt off. And we were just about to get off duty, so he and I walked into the kitchen of this big old home. And we sat on the floor on opposite walls, back one, and I looked over and I saw his cartridge belt laying there. And all the powder was running out of the shells. Took all the bullets off his cartridges in his belt and pouring powder off on the kitchen floor. I said, how close can you be? His name was Fischer, and he spoke German, and I made a good friend of him because I wanted to know what was going on in Germany, if I ever made it there. Because we had a long ways to go from Anzio. We still had the southern France deal, clear across southern France and into Germany, and many experiences like that. You know, I developed trench foot. I was in a hole in the ground for 20 days, I guess, with water up to my shins. I found an old box in the woods beyond the front line. I walked back and got that box, and I put it in my foxhole and put my feet up against the bank. And well, I couldn't keep my feet up there all the time, so and I wasn't going to take my shoes off because I was going to run around them woods in my bare feet. You know, so I went to Lieutenant Murdoch, and I told him, I said, Lieutenant, I can't go any further. I can't walk. And he said, well, no, there's a doctor over there in a big tent in an open field. He said, go and see what he says. He said, I hope you'll come back, Nokes, he said, because we're running short of men. And but I went to the doctor, and while I was in this tent, am I taking too much of your time?
Absolutely not. This is exactly what I want, exactly.
I went to this tent, the doctor had a flashlight, and while I was there, a weapons carrier pulled up with a boy that had been buried in his foxhole alive, out by a bed that didn't go off. And he had a friend with him evidently in the hole or close by. And this boy that I went to, I saw him later because the doctor told me I had to lay down on the stretcher there. But I told him to go out to the weapons carrier, that I could walk out to the weapons carrier. And he said, soldier, he said, you lie down on that stretcher there, you may never walk again. And so I did what he told me, but I thought, because my feet were hurting so dang bad, you know. I had a pretty severe case of trench foot, because I was put in a trench foot ward down in the hospital in Naples. Now, where did I end up? Where did I end up? I was in the tent hospital for some time with this trench foot because there was no LSD at the dock. But when the LSD did come in, there seemed to be like 200 soldiers at least laying on stretchers to be put on this floor of this LSD, and I was one of them. And when the engines started to back out of the dock, a shell hit the pilot house and killed one crewman upstairs. And of course the boys on the deck, you know, a lot of them were like this, you know. They had head wounds and leg wounds, and some practically lost their, well, one boy did lose his foot because he stepped on a foot mine, you know. It's just a box of TNT like this. We were all worried about those. The engineers are looking for those things all the time, you know. And they would be booby-trap trees that fell across the street. They hang booby traps in the trees. And so the bulldozer sometimes had the worst time and had to move the tree, or we had to cut it up and move it off the highway. And so, now, okay, what else could I remember to tell you about? Oh, I got back to Naples, and they put me in, seemed like chains, put my feet up on chains up in the air. The doctor came in every morning and he pricked my insteps to see if I could feel it, you know. He started my toes, and I couldn't feel anything in my toes, but as he got higher up in my instep, I said, oh, well, he said, oh, that's good. He said, that's what I want to know. You know, he says, you're doing good, you're doing fine. So, during the night, I was not supposed to get out of bed, but there was a big 10-gallon glass jar in the hall of the hospital, and I noticed it when I came in. It was full of orange juice. And God, I wanted that orange juice so bad that I got up, and it was like putting my feet on a bed of needles, you know, and I was not supposed to get out of bed. And I walked out there, and I was coming back with my glass of orange juice, and the nurse caught me. My God, soldier, what are you doing out of bed? You know, and I said, well, there's nobody around here. I said, and what do you, who drinks that orange juice out there? I said, I thought I'd like to have some. And so.
How long were you in the hospital?
I think I was in 2 weeks, maybe. Then I went to Mussolini Stadium, which was a rehab center. I ran the track mostly to keep my feet in shape, to see if I could get my feet back in shape. And I was doing well. And the sergeant came over and he says, I saw where you were on your record. The sergeant in charge of the camp, he came over and he said, I saw on your records where you played professional baseball. I said, yes, I did. He said, are you well enough to play on our team? And you know, I said, yeah, I said, I feel pretty good now. Well, he says, okay. He said, come work out with us. So I did. Of course, I made the team right away. I just, 1939, I played professional baseball in Idaho, Utah, and what they call the Pioneer League. But we'll get back to the war.
What do you,
the sergeant was very happy that I could play ball, because we were playing baseball before 2,000 GIs in Mussolini Stadium, you know, and the sergeant, he was from Chicago or somewhere, and we had a good team. We had a couple of pitchers, I think, from the Boston Red Sox there, and I faced some pretty good pitching. Of course, I already had faced some pretty good pitching, but I did well. I hit the first ball, the left-hander threw me, and the sergeant got all excited then. Sergeant got all excited then, and he got me a job handing out cots to the soldiers that were coming in. You know, and I'm wondering now, when am I going to get back to my unit? I love the 36 engineers. I wanted to be there, you know. I hardly had a chance to talk to them, you know. We all knew each other by Frenchie and Scotty and Tex, you know. They called me Kinky because I had curly hair. And anyway, Mary.
How long did it take you to get back to the unit then?
I rejoined the 36 engineers for the landing at Toulon.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And they all, as soon as my company saw me, you know, they said, oh God, we heard you were dead, you lost both legs and everything, you know. So, but when I saw Scotty and Frenchie, I felt I was home, because they were good. Frenchie could make alcohol. And he made it so strong it burned our lips. And Scotty would test it. And a couple of pots they had, they turned upside down, you know, and as the steam came out of the pots, it made alcohol. Came down into what looked like a pie tin, you know. It was a square about this thick pie tin. And then we take it out in the snow so it would cool off. We set it in the snow because it had been snowing. And, well, anyway, Scotty and Frenchie, I'll never forget. I got a nice letter from John. His name was John Ramsey. I learned later he lived in Long Island, New York, and he wrote me a beautiful letter after I got home. And I wish I could have seen Scotty again, because I don't know as I should recite the poem that he taught me, but maybe you can delete it if you don't like it.
There we go.
Yeah. He said he was a Scotchman and he still had his brogue, you know. And he taught me a poem. He said there would always be in England as long as Scotland stands, because it's due to dear old Scotland that England's wealth expands. Our friendly neighbour, England, we will always defend. We will help her fight her battles and her broken ships will mend. And when the war is over and victory has been won, they will sing of England's glory and the wonders she has done. Scotty loved that poem.
I like that. That's great. That's great.
Well, I don't know how many Englishmen like that, but so you got to think about that. you know those Tommies, they don't take too lightly to something.
What do you remember? Any specific things about? Did you ever work on Bailey bridges or anything in France and all that? Can you tell me something about that? Yes.
We got into in southern France. I worked with my company building a Bailey bridge across the Meurthe River, and it was in a little town called Saint Die. They may have called it Saint Die, but I called it Saint Die. It was D-I-E, and the town was on fire while we were building the Bailey Bridge. And there was a line of tanks, must have been 50 of them, lined up the road waiting to get across the bridge. And the colonel came down, he looked at the river and everything, and he said, I'm going to try and go across it without the bridge. So he brought a tank down, and he made it through the first, the river had an island in the middle of it. And he made it down in the first water, pretty deep. He made it up on the island, but when he went down on the other side where the water was deeper, he went up almost to the turret, and he went up the bank as far as the tank could go. It could have either fell backward or forward, and it fell backward, and it slid down into the deep water. I think that tank is there today. I don't know, but he tried it, but he lost the tank. You know, boy, they were awful important to us. And he had to wait then. And I think I drove the first truck across the bridge at Meurthe River after we put it together. You know, it's put together like a Rector set, you know. And if a tank, we run a heavy truck across it, and if it showed weakness or something like that, then we put what they call a double-double. We put a section on top of it to make it stronger. You know. But experiences, yes, Marion, I have them. People are listening out there. I'm talking to Marion Char. She's a historian of the 36 combat engineers. And as we meet here in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, we so enjoyed her stories and all the information she has on us. So,
well, thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah. We also had a crossing the Neckar River outside of Heidelberg in Germany. I lost an officer there. He was a second lieutenant that just came over from school, and he was a John Wayne type, had 245s on his hip, tall fellow, nice fellow though, but he was getting most of his information from the sergeants, you know, in my company that knew their way around, you know, and he was very good about it. You know, we'd ask him how we were doing and where we'd been. You know, very nice man. But he went up to inspect a Bailey Bridge site that we were building a pontoon bridge. And he thought maybe we could build a Bailey Bridge site at the original site where the bridge was blown out. And he went up with my friend Tex, driving the Jeep. He and Tex went up and looked at the site. And he was standing right where the bridge started and looking down the highway and shaking his head, Tex said, and a sniper got him from the other side of the river. And he got him right in the head. And Tex picked him up and put him over the Jeep and brought him back to the headquarters. But he died. And my most favorite officer was killed when we were working on the Maginot Line. And I was with a squad. We were working on the tracks under the Maginot Line. And while we were there, 4 American planes flew over, P-47s, I think they call them, fighter planes, and they started to peel off like this, come down. And somebody shot up a yellow flare to identify us. We're Americans, But they came right down over our bivouac area, which was in a railroad station. And a boy had gone AWOL, and they were taking him back. My officer was taking him back. My officer and the first sergeant were taking him back. Maybe he was being court-martialed, I don't know. But the planes got that truck. Now, if they were American pilots, they would have known a 6x6 truck, surely, that they were right down on top of the camp and out, and they killed my friend Murdoch and killed the first sergeant. And so, we just had a birthday party for the lieutenant the night before, and we found some colored stuff. Maybe it was urine, I don't know. Some colored stuff to put in and make it look like whiskey. And we had a wonderful time the night before. But I cared a lot for that officer, and I felt bad after we lost him. But we went on into Germany. Then, like I say, I wound up in Nuremberg, Germany. And I was deactivated from Innsbruck, Austria, because I had enough points to come home. I'd been over there 2 years, and I had enough points to be one of the first ones to be released. And they sent me back to Paris, and gave me a card and a number. And that's a long story. John Allen could probably tell you the rest of it, because he and I were on the same boat. We got on the same boat, the Sea Robin, and we sailed through the Straits of Gibraltar. We're on our way home, but I didn't think we were going to make it for the seas we were in. We were bringing up water over the bow, coming home. And the kids were scared to death, And including me. And Jesus, I come this far, now I ain't gonna make it home. And anyway, Marion, I hope you enjoy what I'm telling you.
Well, thank you, Tom. That was perfect. That's exactly the type I wanted. Personal stories. Those were perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.